Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I had another window open that was playing another video that I wasn't aware of, so sorry about that. Welcome to episode 19 of Inside the Wrongful Conviction of Daniel Holtzclaw. And I hope wherever you're at that you're safe and grounded and dry. And I know that's not the case for everybody on the panel, so, or what's coming for you guys. And I know that's not the case for me, so welcome everybody on the panel, Susan, Jack, Kay, and Cherie. And I think Kay said she's going to be popping in and out a little bit this afternoon. She's got Friday engagement, and so anyway,
sounds like something. Sounds like something you put in your oven. It's gonna be popping in and out.
Popping in and out.
That'd be better.
Popping fresh.
Popping fresh. Now I'm hungry. It takes very little to get me onto the food subject, so.
I was gonna say you're easy, man.
I'm so easy. I've had toast today. I didn't have time to really stop and eat like a food. So anyway, that's okay. I'll be fine. So before we get started, I was planning to review two episodes tonight of Bates Investigates, because on Tabitha Barnes' case, he did two episodes of what he calls scrutinizing, the accuser's case. He did two for Tabitha Barnes because she's so weird. So I was going to do them both today, but there's no way I was going to be able to do them justice, just because I already, having to put this off until a Friday, which I'm not happy about, and I'm really sorry to inconvenience everyone. But and I've just been in and out away from home this week so much. So to do episode 13 justice, I'm going to finish that off and prepare that or present that as a premiere either Sunday or Monday morning. Now I know how to do that, so there shouldn't be any screw ups like the last time I tried to do a premiere. So anyway, it's going to be a lengthy video, and I encourage any questions from the chat or comments from the chat or from anybody on the panel. If at any point you want to pause so we can talk about a certain thing, please don't hesitate to do that, because otherwise we're just going to be listening to what is a very detailed breakdown by Brian Bates, and you guys really need this because he did really, really well tying everything all together and bringing out points that I missed, and I thought I knew a fair amount about this case. So that's pretty much what it's going to be tonight. Susan, Jack, Kay, Cherie, anybody have any comments they'd like to make or announcements or anything before we get started?
Not I.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. You all set, Jack?
All right, I am.
Dang, I've been trying to unmute for 30 seconds.
Would you like any comments, Kay?
Wow. I was just going to say that I spent some time with Daniel's parents, Eric and Kimiko, yesterday and today. And we started watching Outcry, which they hadn't seen before, which was really hard for them to watch. But because there are so many similarities in that case to Daniel's case. And then, for you guys who have seen it, how heartbreaking it would be to watch the end of that, where, he gets out and he gets married, and just all those to watch. But, I think I think Eric had heard about the documentary a while back, but just really didn't think it was something that he could watch. But he commented that it was they really did a good job on the documentary. And I think it would be great for everyone to reach out to the producers, which there are 5 or 6 of them, and just tell them about Daniel's case. We really need to try to find someone who will, do a more extended documentary. Of course, the one that Michelle Malkin did, Daniel in the Den, is excellent. She really did a great job with that. But
we should get the address. Maybe you already have it, but provide it for people that might be helpful.
Yeah, I got the names. It's probably going to be email addresses that I can possibly locate for those, but I'll do that and post it in Rhonda's Discord, maybe announce it on a future show too. We could scroll it across the bottom, see if we can get some more help. Also, Greg Kelly from Outcry, he started a new foundation called the Vindication Foundation, and it looks like it may have just been established this month, if I was reading that correctly. I can't really tell exactly, what they do, but Eric sent an email to him this morning, and so there's a Facebook page for the Vindication Foundation, and it has a message tab on it. So, if anyone that's on Facebook would go to that page and message and ask him to look into Daniel's case, it would be so powerful to have someone like Greg stand up for Daniel and advocate for him. And since it does seem like it's a new foundation, maybe getting in, before thousands and thousands of people ask might be beneficial. Anyway, that's all I got. Other than just to say that Eric, Kimiko, and Daniel just continue to say thank you for every action that someone takes on Daniel's behalf. And that's all I have.
Yep, me muted too. Thank you, Kay. I appreciate that. I, on a completely unrelated to Daniel's case, had a conversation with Eric Holtzclaw. Was it yesterday or the day before? I really don't remember, to be honest. But hi, little bar. It is so great to see you. Thanks for popping in. Love having you in the chat. Anyway, we ultimately did end up, of course, speaking about Daniel, and he said that it asked me to, convey the same thing that Kay did. So, he's just very appreciative. And I was going to do this today, and I didn't get the chance. And so I'm wondering if perhaps Kay or one of the others on the panel can find the find the link for the. I asked Mr. Holtzclaw yesterday about the link for the donations to help with legal funds for Daniel's case, or for Daniel's attorney. And so he said absolutely, that he would, of course, be very happy if we shared that and, make people aware of it. And so I meant to do that, and I meant to put that into the description for today's video, but I didn't. And so I don't know if one of you, I know Kay, you probably have it pretty close to your fingertips. And
I can look it up. It's a Go Get Funding. It's a Go Get Funding one. So it looks like someone might have put it in the private chat just now. No.
Well, I know it's in Discord somewhere, but I don't remember where. I was looking
Cherie. Yeah, Cherie, if you just Google Go Get Funding Daniel Holtzclaw, you'll come up with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where I need to remember to make that a permanent link in the description, and to put it in the chat each week at least once, so that so we can get some traction. And again, those who have joined, have a membership, joined the channel membership or whatever it's called here on my channel. Like I've said before, all of the funds that come from that each month will go 100% of whatever I get from YouTube goes to Daniel's either transcript purchases for us or to his attorney fees. So thank you to all the members. Don't forget, you have your little special emoji badges that you can use throughout the, while we're chatting or in the comment section. So if you're a member, don't hesitate to use those little special badges that you have. And I figured out how to do, special perks or whatever for members of the channel now through YouTube Studio, or through the YouTube Studio. So instead of putting it all in Discord now, like I have been, I now know how to do it through YouTube. So you'll get notifications through YouTube. So, excuse me. So I think those were the announcements that I had, and appreciate you, Kay, for sharing message from the Holtzclaws. And if everyone is ready, hello, Justine. It's great to see you. Always great to have you in the chat. So I think what we'll do is go ahead and start this video. Again, you're going to get a lot of, I don't want to say it, loose ends, kind of, or dots connected, I guess is the best way to say it. You're going to get some dots connected, and that are, that Brian Bates has, knowledge of, since he was the investigator. And so that you're going to hear a lot of that in this audio of Brian Bates. And so I think we're going to go ahead and just get that started. And here we go.
In the last episode, we heard the August 17th, 2014 interview between Oklahoma City Police sex crimes detective Rocky Gregory, 41-year-old Holtzclaw accuser Tabitha Barnes, Barnes had first been approached by Detective Gregory on August 14th after he went to her home and inquired if she was the victim of an unreported sexual assault. When Barnes indicated that she had been harassed by an Oklahoma City police officer and inappropriately touched, Gregory called for his boss, Lieutenant Timothy Musney, to come to their location and witness the interview. What Detective Gregory and Lieutenant Musney failed to do, however, was to audio record any of this initial interview. Instead, the official investigative report claims that Barnes was sleepy and nodding off due to being up all night and recently taking the prescription medicine Ambien. Detective Gregory ended the interview and reportedly rescheduled for 10 a.m. the following day at Barnes's residence. Personally, I find this very troubling. For one, I do not believe that Detective Gregory, a seasoned sex crimes investigator, took the time to drive to Barnes's home and then call and ask his boss to join them, but neglected to record the resulting interview. Lieutenant Musney didn't even bother to file a supplemental report noting his presence during this interview and what he heard and observed. I personally believe that was a deliberate act to further distance himself from this particular encounter. If you care for my opinion, I firmly believe that Detective Gregory did indeed record this first encounter with Tabitha Barnes. However, she was so high, so incoherent, and unable to remain conscious that Detective Gregory knew the recording would not reflect well on Barnes or her credibility, and therefore he had no other option than to terminate the interview and start again at a later date. In fact, Detective Gregory said this to Barnes when he finally met with her again in reference to her incoherence just days before.
You seem a lot more clear-minded today.
There is also another troubling possibility, and I'll get to that one in just a moment. Detective Gregory claims he returned to Barnes's residence the next morning, but that she was not home. According to his report, he called her contact numbers several times and returned to her home over and over again over the next couple of days, at least 5 times to no avail. Keep in mind, Barnes is unemployed, broke, has at least 3 young children, and doesn't drive. Yet, detectives claim that she isn't home and they can't locate her. However, on August 17th, at around 2:15 in the afternoon, Detective Gregory is once again at Barnes's residence. This time she is home, and he records a subsequent interview that you heard in episode 11. I find the timing between the first interview with Barnes, the one that was mysteriously not recorded and cut short on August 14th, and the one that was recorded only 3 days later on August 17th. An important event happened just prior to the first interview and immediately following that interview, but prior to the second recorded interview. On August 13th, investigators, you'll recall, met with accuser Florine Mathis at the Oklahoma County Jail. Florine Mathis has a direct connection to this episode and Tabitha Barnes. For one, you may remember that Mathis admitted that she frequented and had just left a crack house near Northeast 16th and Jordan Avenue, shortly before Daniel Holtzclaw allegedly touched her breasts inappropriately on April 14th of 2014. We also know from episode 10 that Holtzclaw never encountered Mathis, where Mathis claims she was sexually assaulted, near Northeast 17th or Northeast 18th and North Kate Avenue. Instead, GPS and radio dispatch records clearly show that Holtzclaw twice encountered Mathis at Northeast 15th and Jordan, and that both times suspected she was in the area buying and/or using illegal drugs. Well, guess who lives at the corner of Northeast 15th and Jordan Avenue? That's right, Tabitha Barnes. And Tabitha Barnes repeatedly claims that Officer Holtzclaw suspects her and her home to be responsible for dealing crack cocaine and PCP in the immediate area. Before you go thinking I'm making associations between Mathis and Barnes that are unwarranted, specifically that Barnes was dealing crack cocaine and Mathis was one of her customers, just know that at trial, Florine Mathis admitted she has indeed smoked crack cocaine with Tabitha Barnes inside Barnes's home at Northeast 15th and Jordan Avenue. Furthermore, it was made known to Holtzclaw's defense counsel prior to trial and then confirmed at trial that Mathis claimed she worked for Barnes as her housekeeper. Barnes at this time was unemployed, a convicted felon, the single mother of at least 6 children, with at least 3 of those children being minors, and was 100% on government assistance for food, utilities, and rent. And the house Mathis smoked crack cocaine in with Barnes on multiple occasions while working as Barnes's housekeeper, it's a tiny, modest, single-story, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 720 square foot home built in 1955. Nowhere in any of the reports I have, generated by Detective Davis or Detective Gregory, does it reflect any conversation where Mathis admits to knowing, working for, or smoking crack cocaine with Barnes in her home. As a matter of fact, nowhere in any reports that I have do investigators question Tabitha Barnes about her drug usage or possible dealing. Yet, she repeatedly states that Officer Holtzclaw inquires about her drug dealing each and every time he encounters her. I find it odd that investigators would intentionally stay away from that topic with Barnes when they specifically addressed drug usage with Morris, Ellis, and Mathis. The day after interviewing Mathis at the Oklahoma County Jail, Detective Gregory just happens to show up on Barnes's doorstep. And it's the only interview where Gregory calls his boss to attend the interview in the field while also allegedly not recording the resulting interview. Less than 24 hours after cutting short their unrecorded interview with Barnes, investigators return to the Oklahoma County Jail and speak with Florine Mathis yet again. They claim they didn't bother to record that interview because they were only there to get a DNA sample. A DNA sample? Mathis alleged she was simply touched on top of her clothing on a single breast. And that was 2 months prior to Liggins even being stopped. Exactly what DNA did they think had been transferred and would match the DNA on Holtzclaw's pants? Surely they weren't actually at the jail because of something Barnes said during her unrecorded interview that linked her and Mathis and crack cocaine. I can only speculate that is exactly why they returned to the jail and didn't record that interview either. 2 days later, on August 17th, Detective Gregory once again returns to Barnes's residence and completes his interview. That's the interview you heard in episode 11. With the benefit of that recording, the official investigative reports and trial testimony, I'm going to now break down Tabitha Barnes' allegations and discuss the red flags and contradictions that investigators and the prosecution would most likely prefer to remain unscrutinized. For starters, all of the police investigative reports I used to compile this episode are posted on this episode's homepage at holtzclawtrial.com. You can also check this episode's show notes in your streaming app for a direct link. If you get a chance, take the time to look these reports over. Something that should stand out to you is the fact that Detective Gregory repeatedly refers to Officer Holtzclaw in his official report as Spike. He claims that's a nickname given to Holtzclaw by Barnes and her children because they didn't know his real name but associated the nickname with his spiked hairstyle. In fact, Detective Gregory refers to Officer Holtzclaw as Spike at least 15 times in his report regarding his first and second interviews with Tabitha Barnes. Here's the problem though. Nowhere in the recorded interview from episode 11 do you hear Tabitha Barnes or her daughter ever refer to Holtzclaw as Spike or any other nickname. Which begs the question, when exactly was this nickname provided to Detective Gregory, and why was that meeting not noted in any investigative reports? The fact that Barnes nor her daughter ever call Holtzclaw Spike in their initial interviews, which I'll remind you took place almost 5 months after the last time they claim they ever saw Officer Holtzclaw, leads me to believe this really wasn't a nickname they associated with Holtzclaw at the time of the alleged incidents. Instead, I think it's far more likely that that nickname was something that resulted from later meetings with investigators that went undocumented. Regardless, the very first forwarded fact by Tabitha Barnes should have immediately sent up red flags. Unlike previous accusers who are unsure of either the specific date or location of their alleged assaults, Barnes is certain of both. She repeatedly claims the assault occurred in front of her house and on March 4th, 2014. Detective Gregory even repeats that date back for her confirmation.
You said it was the 4th, but you don't know what month. And that's where the stop was, right here.
That was March.
That was March?
March 4th, about 12:30.
Okay. That was the first incident,
That was the
correct?
first incident.
Okay. So that was March 4th. Okay. And I will put that down. Okay.
However, Detective Gregory knows, like with accuser Morris, that the date given doesn't work and actually exonerates Holtzclaw. GPS data and police records for March 4th, 2014 show that Officer Holtzclaw couldn't have had any contact with Tabitha Barnes. But Barnes recalls the date because she associates it with a very specific action that night. Remember, she had an adult friend over, and her daughter was also having a slumber party. They were all in the car waiting for midnight because that's when Barnes's SNAP or food stamp card renews, at midnight. And they wanted to go get some ice cream and snacks. But there's a problem with that scenario, and Detective Gregory knew or should have known it. Holtzclaw's patrol car GPS shows him at Barnes's residence for the first time on February 27th, 2014, not March 4th. And you can't simply say she's getting the date wrong, because she's associated that date with very specific events. The renewal of her food stamp card. That said, SNAP or food stamp benefits are only distributed on specific days each month. The 1st, the 5th, and the 10th. So Barnes probably was in her car on the evening of March 4th and waiting until midnight or 12:01 on March 5th for her food stamp card to be renewed. But she couldn't have encountered Holtzclaw on that date. Which begs the question, is she simply getting the date and her activities wrong? Or is she referencing the right date, just a different police officer? Regardless, she's certain of the date, March 4th, 2014. There was a way Detective Gregory could have clarified this from the very beginning. Barnes made this statement during their interview.
No, if you show me a picture, I bet you I can identify him.
However, as we all know by now, none of the accusers beyond Terry Morris was ever shown a photo lineup, regardless of the fact that the accuser specifically said they could pick their attacker out if a photo was shown to them. Regardless, by the time this case rolls around to trial, Barnes now magically is certain the date matches Holtzclaw's GPS on February 27th, 2014. Yet nowhere in any official investigative report does it reflect a meeting wherein Barnes has this epiphany with investigators that she now remembers a new date. She simply shows up to court, primed and ready to go, with a date that just happens to exactly match the date Detective Gregory needs her to say. The next uncertainty comes when Tabitha Barnes identifies who all was present when she was stopped by Officer Holtzclaw. According to Barnes, they were all in her green four-door Saturn, and it was her in the front passenger seat, her 35-year-old friend Angela Cooper in the driver's seat, and Barnes's 13 and 11-year-old daughters in the back seat. When Cooper was interviewed, however, which wasn't for over a month, and only after Holtzclaw had been arrested, she claims in the car was herself as the driver, Tabitha as the front passenger, one of Tabitha's daughters in the back seat, along with a friend of the daughter that was staying the night. Further evidence shows that the daughter was most likely the 13-year-old and her 13-year-old friend. Cooper gives no mention of the 11-year-old daughter. That's the same daughter that was interviewed by Detective Gregory on August 17, 2014. This discrepancy caused me to go back and listen to the recording of that interview again. And sure enough, if you listen to that interview without the bias of assuming that the 11-year-old daughter was there that night, it becomes obvious that the 11-year-old daughter wasn't in fact in the car during that early morning stop. She literally is never asked directly by Detective Gregory if she was there during the Holtzclaw stop in late February. And Detective Gregory specifically points out to her that he can tell that she was coached by her mother.
Let me ask you this, and this is, I know what you've heard. The story that you just told me, I'm sure that your mama told you that, correct?
My mom told me what?
About what happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yet at trial, it was still forwarded by the prosecution that the 11-year-old daughter was present, even though when they called her to the stand, she clearly claimed she had never met Officer Holtzclaw until March 25th of 2014. That's almost a month after the midnight stop in February. In fact, not only does Angela Cooper not mention the 11-year-old's presence in the car, but neither does Barnes's 13-year-old daughter or the 13-year-old daughter's friend. So, we are not even into the allegation, and the accuser has an impossible date that she is certain of and has forwarded an 11-year-old witness that she has coached and was not even present regardless of the date given. Here's what I do know. Some officer may have encountered Barnes and touched her on March 4th, 2014, but it wasn't Holtzclaw. He did, however, encounter Barnes on February 27th, 2014, and in the car during that encounter was Angela Cooper as the driver, Tabitha Barnes as the front passenger, and in the back seat was Barnes's 13-year-old daughter and her daughter's 13-year-old friend. Where the car was parked when Officer Holtzclaw arrived on scene is also a bit suspicious. It wasn't parked in the driveway, and it wasn't parked directly in front of Barnes's house. According to Barnes, the car was in the street on Northeast 15th, facing east towards the stop sign at Jordan Avenue. However, the car was parked to the west of her residence. Actually, it was in front of the property line of her neighbor's home. We know this because Barnes testified that when she saw the police cars behind her, she pulled up and turned into her driveway. Which begs the question, why not park in your own driveway or in front of your own home? Is it because you don't want your car associated with your house? Is it you don't want people to know anyone is home? Or is it because there is so much traffic coming and going from your house, you are freeing up space? You know, like a drug house. Regardless, again, Barnes makes another assertion that is not supported by the facts. She claims that while they're sitting in the car waiting for midnight, that she sees two patrol cars drive south on Jordan Avenue and then apparently round the block and pull in behind and beside her. We know that's not true, and Detective Gregory knows it's not true either. Holtzclaw was the first on the scene, and he was alone. Holtzclaw's GPS has him arriving at 12:06 a.m. The second officer, Patrolman Ivan Venegas, doesn't arrive for 2 more minutes. When Officer Venegas was interviewed, which wasn't until after Holtzclaw had been arrested, he stated that when he heard Officer Holtzclaw radio in that he was on a car with multiple subjects, he decided to drive to the area to assist and back him up. Which puts up another red flag supporting Holtzclaw's innocence. Why in the world would Holtzclaw put himself out at a location where he plans to sexually assault someone and do it in a way that will most likely cause backup to arrive? At this point, the 2 patrol cars are on scene and have their strobes on. Officer Holtzclaw, who would be the lead officer in this instance, exits his vehicle and walks up to Barnes's vehicle. This brings up an interesting detail that Barnes and Cooper neglected to share with Detective Gregory, but was shared by Barnes's daughter's 13-year-old friend. According to the teen, when Holtzclaw walked up to the car, he shined his flashlight into the car and spotted some pills that were scattered about. Officer Holtzclaw asked what the pills were, and the teen said that Barnes produced a prescription bottle in her name and showed it to Officer Holtzclaw. According to the teen friend, Holtzclaw then asked the girls their names and wrote down their information. According to Officer Venegas, when he joined them, he and Holtzclaw both inquired of Barnes and Cooper about their drug usage and drug activity, specifically crack cocaine. At 12:14 a.m., just 8 minutes after being stopped, Cooper says that Holtzclaw ran both of their names while they were still in their car together. Cooper came back clear, meaning she had no warrants. Barnes, however, came back with 3 minor city cost warrants for destroying property, failure to appear, and possession of marijuana. The following is that actual radio transmission.
Charlie 45, stand by.
Charlie 45, go ahead.
To run. First sergeant's last name is Barnes. Baker Adam, Robert, Nora, Edward, Sam. First name is Tabitha. Tom, Adam, Baker, Adam, Tom, Henry, Adam. Date of birth is 73, black female. Second sergeant's last name is Cooper. That's Charles, Ocean, Paul, Edward, Robert. First name is weird. Angelo, Shantae, Nicole. That's Adam, Nora, George, Edward, Lincoln, Ocean. Shantae is Sam, Henry, Adam, Nora, Tom, Adam, Young. And Nicole's Nora, Ida, Charles, Ocean, Lincoln, Edward. Date of birth is 78, black female.
Charlie 45.
Go ahead.
Tabitha Barnes has 3 CAWs for David Hall 1, Frank Adam 2, Mary John 1, Angela Shantae, Nicole Cooper is clear.
Alright, 1047 over.
Officer Venegas didn't recall the specifics, but did think the women were split up at some point, as that would have been normal procedure, and that they were run shortly after he arrived on scene. Venegas said that he had some small talk with Cooper and interacted with the kids because they were playing and joking around. Officer Venegas said it was cold outside, so at some point he told the kids they could go inside. Barnes and Cooper, however, gave a different version of events to Detective Gregory. Both claimed that the presence of the police was scaring the kids. Tabitha went as far as to claim that she told Holtzclaw he was scaring her kids, and that Holtzclaw told them their mother was going to be fine and that it was he who told them to go inside. Venegas and even the kids themselves contradicted that version of events. Officer Venegas testified at trial that the kids continued to play around and occasionally poked their heads out the front door or the window. He didn't recall them being scared at all. Barnes's 13-year-old daughter and her friend seemed to corroborate this when they each recalled going inside, looking out the window once or twice, but overall just hanging out and not paying much attention to what was going on outside. After a brief interview, Officer Venegas released Cooper, and she recalls that she went inside the house too. Cooper said that a few minutes later she looked outside and saw both officers still there, and Barnes in the back seat of Officer Holtzclaw's patrol car. Officer Venegas recalled that he remembered Holtzclaw talking to him briefly about how the shift was slow, and that he was bored, and that he was considering taking Barnes to jail on her city warrants. Venegas said that by the end of their conversation, Holtzclaw decided to, quote, not mess with it, end quote. At this point, Officer Venegas got back in his patrol car and left. He indicated it was his recollection that Officer Holtzclaw left the scene not long after him. According to GPS data, Officer Venegas pulled away at 12:21 a.m., or just 13 minutes after arriving. Officer Holtzclaw pulled off the stop just 8 or 9 minutes later at 12:30 a.m. It's what happened in those 8 to 9 minutes that is in dispute. Barnes says she was forced to expose herself and then inappropriately touched. Holtzclaw says nothing of the sort ever occurred. Barnes stated that after Venegas had driven away and Cooper had gone inside the house, that Holtzclaw exited his patrol car and opened the passenger door where Barnes was still seated. Even though the temperature that night was in the low 20s, Barnes said she was wearing long pajama bottoms and a white t-shirt. In the recorded interview with Detective Gregory, Barnes was insistent that she was also wearing a bra.
The first time I did.
First time you did have a bra?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you said the other day you did not have a bra.
The first time I had a bra on because I lifted it up.
Uh-huh.
Lifted the bra up, and it wasn't good enough for him.
However, by the time the trial rolled around, she changed her testimony and then claimed she wasn't wearing a bra at all. That's not the only flip-flopping Barnes does with her version of events. You'll recall Barnes told Detective Gregory that she was seated in the back seat of Daniel's patrol car, facing out the door with her feet outside the car and on the ground. At the preliminary hearing, Barnes said she was seated facing forward with her feet in front of her in the car and on the floorboard. This would have made it much more difficult for her to turn, face Holtzclaw, expose herself, and for him to have lifted each of her breasts with his hands. And wouldn't you know it, once trial rolls around, the prosecution has cleaned that up too, and Barnes is once again seated, facing out with her feet on the ground. Barnes stated that Holtzclaw began asking her if she had any drugs hidden on her, to which she replied she did not. Barnes says that's when Holtzclaw asked her, quote, "Can you show me that you don't have anything on you?" End quote. Barnes said she knew what that meant and raised her shirt to her belly. To which Barnes claims that Holtzclaw responded by saying, quote, "No, do you have anything under your shirt?" End quote. During her recorded interview, Barnes told Detective Gregory that she asked Holtzclaw, "Shouldn't you have a female officer come to search me?" However, at the preliminary hearing, when asked by prosecutor Galen Gigger, Barnes replied that she thought he needed a female officer to search her, but that she never actually said anything about it. Barnes went on to state that she knows male officers are supposed to call for a female officer because, quote, "I used to sell drugs," end quote. But as luck would have it for the prosecution, this contradiction too was corrected by the time the trial rolled around. At trial, she testified that she did indeed tell Holtzclaw he needed a female officer to perform a search upon her. When asked why she mentioned this to Officer Holtzclaw, Barnes testified, quote, "I watch a lot of police shows. I mean, a lot," end quote. Just for quick clarification, it was discussed at trial, and it is not a requirement that male Oklahoma City police officers must have a female perform searches upon female suspects. Barnes claims that Holtzclaw next barked out to her, quote, "Let me see," end quote. At this point, Barnes claims she knew she either needed to expose her breasts to Holtzclaw or she was going to jail, so she did just that. Again, while meeting with Detective Gregory, Tabitha Barnes is very clear that she was wearing a bra and that she lifted it and her shirt for Holtzclaw.
This time, I know I didn't have no bra
on the first time, but he picked up your bare breasts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I had it because I just did like this with my shirt and my bra.
And then he had you expose them.
Yeah.
So you had to pull your bra up over your breast on the first time?
And with my shirt.
Is that correct?
Yes, with my shirt.
I'll make that correction in my report. I misunderstood you. I didn't think you had a bra on that first time. So you did have a bra. He just had you pull it up and then he lifts it.
However, at trial, she once again changes her story, and in this version, she isn't wearing a bra. Barnes says that because her breasts sag, Holtzclaw asked her if he could lift them up to look underneath for hidden contraband. Holtzclaw then allegedly took one breast in the palm of each hand, lifted, and then returned them and let go. According to Barnes, Holtzclaw then asked her how much time she needed to pay off her tickets and ended the conversation with, quote, "I can help you if you play by my rules," end quote. If you read this report on this episode's homepage, you'll notice that every alleged quote from Holtzclaw comes with an exclamation point added by Detective Gregory for emphasis. I think it also is a telltale sign of Detective Gregory's confirmation bias. Tabitha claimed in her recorded meeting with Detective Gregory that she took Holtzclaw's quote to mean that as long as she gave him sex, he would somehow take care of her tickets. The problem with that line of thought, though, is obvious. Holtzclaw never even talks to her about sex and certainly never asks for sex.
You ever talk about having sex with you?
No.
Like so many of the other little details, this one too changed at trial and changed to the prosecution's benefit. At trial, Barnes testified that she took that quote to mean that if she did as he asked, meaning to expose herself, then she would be allowed to go inside her house. At that point, Officer Holtzclaw released Barnes from investigative detention and she went back inside her home, and Officer Holtzclaw got back in his patrol car and drove away. When Barnes got inside her house, she claimed she immediately gathered up her children and told them and Angela Cooper all that had happened regarding Holtzclaw having her expose herself and then touching her. She retold this version at the preliminary hearing and again at trial. Also at trial, Barnes said she specifically told her 11 and 13-year-old daughters that if they see Holtzclaw, they are to run. Like so many other details, Barnes's version doesn't even come close to matching what others say happened that night. Barnes's teen daughter's 13-year-old friend told Detective Gregory that Barnes never told her anything about having to expose herself, being touched, or that she should run when she sees the officer. But the teen did say Barnes looked upset when she came inside the house and went to her bedroom. The friend said she felt uncomfortable and called her mother to come get her, and she and Barnes's 13-year-old daughter left with the mother when she arrived. But even this witness's version of events leaves out details that would be inconvenient for the prosecution. Angela Cooper told Detective Gregory that she too observed Barnes to be upset or angry when she came inside the house. Cooper also confirmed that Barnes never said a word to her or the children at that time about exposing herself, being touched, or playing by his rules. She did, however, add that Barnes became angry and got into an argument with the kids and went to bed. Angela said she stayed the night, and the only comment Barnes made was that Holtzclaw said something about her, quote, titties. When Barnes's 13-year-old daughter was interviewed by Detective Gregory, she reportedly told him all her mother told her was that Holtzclaw wanted to, quote, unquote, check her, and that he should have called for a female officer. The teen daughter did not recall Barnes saying anything about exposing herself, being touched, playing by his rules, or to run if she ever saw him. The 13-year-old daughter also told Detective Gregory she doesn't often stay with her mother. She lives with her father, and at that time of the interview hadn't seen her mother in a couple of months. The 11-year-old daughter, though, the one you heard in episode 11, the one who Detective Gregory and prosecutors forward as being there in the car the night of the stop, yet nobody but Barnes has ever put her in the car during the stop. The same 11-year-old daughter of Barnes that even Detective Gregory called out during their interview for being coached. Well, she claims Barnes did tell her about exposing herself and about being touched. In fact, the 11-year-old added that she was told by her mother that Holtzclaw said, quote,
and he kept saying, I would like to see those.
What else did your mama say?
That's all she told me.
Even though Barnes has never mentioned that quote in any police interview. While Angela Cooper told Detective Gregory that Barnes looked upset when she came inside the house and that she did make some brief comment about Holtzclaw saying something about her titties, Cooper specifically told Gregory that Barnes mentioned nothing about being touched, harassed, or exposing herself. Speaking of Angela Cooper, who is she exactly? Well, that's difficult to define. She claims that she's not really a friend of Tabitha Barnes's, more of an acquaintance, but that she was at her home at midnight and eventually stayed the night. Cooper claims she was there as, are you ready for this? A housekeeper. She claims she was staying over all day and night to help Barnes, who is not good friends of hers, clean her house for an upcoming inspection by Section 8 housing. But I thought Florine Mathis was Barnes's quote-unquote housekeeper. In fact, Cooper tells Detective Gregory that they are so not friends that after spending the entire day and night cleaning Barnes's 700 square foot house, she's never even bothered to talk to Barnes ever again, and knew nothing about the alleged allegations against Holtzclaw. And another thing regarding Cooper, at the time she was staying overnight at Barnes's house, she was on 10 years probation for, you guessed it, possession of drugs and drug proceeds. Sounds exactly how you would describe a drug dealer. Oh, she was also on probation for bogus checks, obstructing an officer, that's the legal term for lying to an officer, and harboring a fugitive. So what do I think really happened? I personally think it's pretty clear. Leading up to this event, Patrol Officer Daniel Holtzclaw had pegged Barnes's home as a major contributor to the distribution and/or consumption of illegal narcotics in the immediate area, specifically crack cocaine and PCP. Holtzclaw based this belief on police intel, watching individuals coming and going from the residence while out on patrol, and even first-hand information from people he stopped and engaged with on the streets who said they had either purchased drugs from individuals in the house or traded merchandise for drugs and a place to do them. And at least to some degree, we know Holtzclaw's intuition was spot on. Barnes herself admitted under oath at preliminary hearing to selling drugs, and during the criminal trial to using crack cocaine. Additionally, and I'll get to this more when we get to the trial, but Tabitha Barnes literally showed up to Holtzclaw's criminal trial high on PCP. We know this because her erratic behavior caused Judge Timothy Henderson to order her tested on the spot. Furthermore, accuser Florine Mathis also admitted to smoking crack cocaine with Barnes in Barnes's home at Northeast 15th and Jordan Avenue. Holtzclaw also knew that there were children who lived in this suspected crack house. Just after midnight on February 27, 2014, Holtzclaw was patrolling the Spring Lake District. He did drive along Jordan Avenue and past Northeast 16th Street, but he was alone. Holtzclaw noticed a vehicle parked on the street, near a suspected crack house and with its headlights on. Holtzclaw's activity log and radio dispatches show that it had indeed been a slow shift. He rounds the block in a wide circle, taking nearly 3 minutes to get back to Northeast 16th Street and pull up behind Barnes's vehicle. Seeing that the vehicle is still sitting parked and running, and noticing it's occupied by several people, Holtzclaw radios in what he sees and turns on his patrol car's overhead strobe lights. Noting the patrol car behind them, Angela Cooper pulls her car forward and turns into the driveway. Holtzclaw inches forward, parking in the street but also blocking in Barnes's vehicle. Fellow patrol officer Ivan Venegas, aware that Holtzclaw is out on a vehicle with several subjects, drives to his location and parks in the street and directly in front of Barnes's home. He exits his vehicle and watches as Holtzclaw cautiously approaches Barnes's green Saturn. Holtzclaw, who by police policy would be the lead officer in this stop, lights up the occupants in the car with his flashlight. Holtzclaw notes that there are 2 adult females in the front seat, Barnes and Cooper, and 2 teenage girls in the back seat, Barnes's 13-year-old daughter and the daughter's 13-year-old friend. The 11-year-old daughter is not present in the vehicle. Barnes explains that her teen daughter is having a friend over to spend the night and that they are going to run to the convenience store to get them some ice cream. Holtzclaw is not certain he believes their story and notes that both Barnes and Cooper seem a bit disheveled and are both wearing pajama bottoms and t-shirts, certainly not dressed for the sub-freezing temperatures. Holtzclaw then notices what appears to be pills spilled out in the car and asks what they are and who they belong to. Barnes produces a prescription bottle bearing her name and explains they must have fallen out of her purse. Holtzclaw chastises Barnes briefly and has her return the pills to their bottle. Holtzclaw asks and notes the names of all 4 people in the car. He then calls into dispatch and runs both Barnes's and Cooper's names for warrants. If they come back clear, this will be a quick stop and an opportunity to note the names of the occupants of the house he suspects is dealing drugs. While they wait for dispatch to get back to them, Officer Venegas jokes around with the two teens who seem to have very little interest in what is going on. It's cold out. They've already had Cooper turn off the ignition to the car, so Venegas tells the girls they can go inside to stay warm. After a short pause, Cooper comes back clear, but Barnes shows to have 4 minor city warrants for unpaid tickets. Holtzclaw decides to use this as an opportunity to gain more intel on what exactly is going on in Barnes's home. So he separates Barnes and Cooper, with Barnes being put in the rear driver's side seat of his patrol car and Cooper being placed in Venegas's patrol car. Both officers question the women individually about drug activity in the area and whether or not they themselves are involved. After a few minutes, Venegas lets Cooper out of his patrol car and she goes inside. Holtzclaw steps out of his patrol car and talks briefly with Venegas. He tells him he's considering taking Barnes to jail on her warrants because it's been a slow night and he'd like to put some heat on Barnes for her suspected drug activity. But he also knows that he can't just leave the children with a woman that admittedly isn't even a close friend of Barnes. Finding a relative to come and get the kids and booking Barnes into jail could take hours, and his shift will be ending soon. So Holtzclaw tells Venegas that he isn't going to mess with it. Venegas drives away and Holtzclaw returns to his patrol car and opens the rear driver's side passenger door. He is stern with Barnes and she doesn't like it. Holtzclaw asks her if she has any drugs on her now. She says no. Holtzclaw instructs her to perform what is known in law enforcement circles as the clasp and shake. It's an unflattering procedure that was mentioned during Holtzclaw's interrogation. Basically, it's when a female suspect is instructed to clasp their bra over their shirt, pull their bra away from their breasts, and then shake the shirt and bra. The idea being to dislodge any drugs, paraphernalia, or weapons that may be hidden under breast tissue or concealed in the suspect's undergarments. While certainly embarrassing, if done correctly, doesn't expose the suspect's breasts, but does often result in uncovering evidence of additional crimes. You've probably never heard of this procedure, and the Oklahoma City Police Department would probably prefer to keep it that way. But it was considered perfectly acceptable at the time, but naturally, it garnered resentment from those who were often targeted for its use. Finding no drugs and being assured by Barnes that she was going to work to pay on her tickets, Holtzclaw decides to release her to go inside. After about a minute, Holtzclaw then pulls away to continue his shift. Barnes, upset that whatever she had actually been planning to do that evening had been interrupted, and being more than slightly annoyed by Holtzclaw's implying that she was a drug user or even a drug dealer, she has no patience for the horse-playing kids in her house and immediately gets into a shouting argument with them and then goes to her bedroom and slams the door. Barnes's teen friend then calls her mom to come and get her and Barnes's daughter for the remainder of the night. But as you know from Barnes's recorded interview in episode 11, her contact with Holtzclaw and her allegations against him don't end here. In fact, Barnes encounters Holtzclaw again on this very same day. As I've pointed out previously, Holtzclaw works an overnight shift that runs from about 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. the following day. So an hour and a half after encountering Barnes, Cooper, and the teens, Holtzclaw ends his shift and heads home, only to return to work about 8 hours later. Now fast forward, if you will, from 12:30 a.m. on the morning of February 27, 2014 to around 10 p.m. that same date. Holtzclaw has gone home, slept, returned to work, and has been patrolling again for about 6 hours. Tabitha Barnes is returning from the Golden Corral restaurant with her 13-year-old daughter, the daughter's 13-year-old friend, and a 22-year-old woman identified as Raven Nicole Summers. As they were driving north on Jordan Avenue and approaching 15th Street, they saw a black male walking from the direction of their house. He crossed the street and walked north through the yard of a vacant house. The man appeared to be carrying a retail box and a sack. As they rounded the corner, the man stopped and began waving at them to get their attention and yelling, "Hey, hey, hey." As they stopped, the man asked if they wanted to buy a microwave and some steaks. At this point, Tabitha Barnes and her 13-year-old daughter realized the microwave, which was brand new and still in the box, and the steaks had come from their own home. They looked over and saw their front door wide open and all their lights on. Summers told police that she got out of the car, confronted the man, and was yelling, "Hey, that's my microwave." At that point, the man exclaimed he didn't steal the microwave and started running along North Jordan Avenue while still carrying the microwave and the steaks. Summers and Barnes' 13-year-old daughter started chasing the man. The man dropped the microwave and sack and jumped a fence and started heading west through multiple backyards while Summers and the teen continued to chase him. After passing through about 3 backyards, the man turned and headed north towards Northeast 16th Terrace. It was while running through a front yard in the 1500 block of Northeast 16th Terrace that Summers says that she was able to grab a hold of the man's jacket to slow him down. At that point, the man turned around and began fighting the 22 and 13-year-old females. Summers couldn't recall how many times she hit the man and simply described the event as quote-unquote a tussle. The man somehow was able to break free and turn to escape. But as luck would have it, in what had to be pretty comical to witness, the man ran full speed straight into a tree and collapsed onto the ground. The man later claims that one of the females was kicking him in the head and that he went in and out of consciousness. Barnes claims that at that point she caught up and helped Summers hold the man while neighbors who had come outside after hearing the yelling called 911. At 10:14 p.m., Officer Holtzclaw hears a call go out for a disturbance or a fight in the 1500 block of Northeast 16th Terrace and heads that way. It's hard to tell from investigative reports, but it appears Holtzclaw may have been the first officer on the scene. According to Daniel Holtzclaw's official report, quote, "Upon arrival, I observed a black male lying on the ground. The black male, later identified as AR, that means arrested party, Rodney Lee, stated he was running away from several females that threatened to kill him. I observed him to have a bloody lip, busted open, and blood dripping from his mouth. I placed handcuffs on Lee without incident. I escorted Lee to my patrol vehicle where he voluntarily made the following statements. Lee stated he went over to the residence of the 1500 block of Northeast 15th Street. Lee states he observed a microwave on the front porch. Lee states, all of a sudden, several black females confronted me and started to make threats. Lee says he made threats back. Lee got scared and took off running northbound on Jordan from the residence. Lee proceeded to head westbound on Northeast 16th Terrace. Lee says during the time he was running, he observed several females chasing him. Lee says someone pushed him down at the area of 1500 Northeast 16th Terrace, where they began to punch him in the face." End quote. Not knowing what was going on, and Summers claiming Lee had burglarized her home, and Lee claiming that the women attacked him for no reason, Holtzclaw placed handcuffs on both Lee and Summers until the details could be sorted out. About that same time, several other officers began arriving on scene. Barnes estimated that as many as 10 officers responded to the 911 call. One of those officers was an Officer Chris Millay. Millay noted in his report that when he arrived, he observed 2 subjects handcuffed and laying on the ground. Summers was eventually unhandcuffed and released from investigative detention. Lee was placed into Holtzclaw's patrol car where he gave his statement. Officer Millay noted that the suspect was bleeding and complaining of head pains. Lee explained that he had just been released from the hospital on February 14th after receiving treatment for bleeding on the brain. He thought that possibly the bleeding had returned as a result of his new injuries. Lee did refuse medical treatment by paramedics and was transported by Officer Millay to Presbyterian Hospital to be checked out before he could be booked into the Oklahoma County Jail. When officers checked Lee's background, they found he had served time in prison in 2002, 2008, and 2009 for burglary in the second degree. Barnes testified at trial that at least one female officer responded to the burglary. Barnes said she pulled the officer aside in her kitchen and told her that she had some active warrants. The female officer told her not to worry about it. Barnes was asked at trial why she didn't take that opportunity to tell the female officer that Holtzclaw had been at her home earlier that day and had made her expose herself and had then touched her breasts. Barnes replied at trial with the following quote, "First of all, we was trying to get our food back and all of that. When Spike walked in my house, he eye contacted me. I hurry up and turn my head." Barnes went on to say that she was too terrified to tell the female officer, didn't think anyone would believe her, and she was just trying to put it all behind her. Officers noted in their reports that Barnes's front door had been kicked in and the door frame was splintered into pieces. Summers told officers that several food items were missing. The house appeared to have been rummaged through and that a television in one of the bedrooms had been laid on the floor as if Lee was going to come back later and take it. Summers said she did not know or recognize Lee and then signed a citation for assault and battery against him. An OCPD captain took photos of the crime scene and where the microwave was dropped. The microwave was returned, and Summers said she would be calling the landlord the next morning to fix the front door. I have to interject here, and I've got to be honest. I don't really know what the truth is or what it even means one way or the other. But just like the presence of Angela Cooper seemed out of place in the early morning incident, the friend who really wasn't a friend, but allegedly spent the day and night helping Tabitha Barnes to clean her 700 square foot house and then allegedly never talked to her again? Well, the presence or identity of Raven Nicole Summers seems just as mysterious. In police reports from the burglary, Summers is clearly identified as the victim and living in Barnes's home. In fact, in Officer Boyette's official incident report, he specifically identifies Tabitha Barnes as, quote, the victim's stepmother, end quote, and goes on to state, quote, it should be known the victim and all involved parties except the 13-year-old friend lived at the house, end quote. That seems clear enough. Summers is Tabitha Barnes' stepdaughter. But then, when you fast forward to Daniel Holtzclaw's criminal trial, and I'm reading from page 1873 of the jury trial transcript. Prosecutor Galen Giger, question. One of those people named Raven Summers, Tabitha Barnes, answer, yes. Giger, is Raven Summers? Who is she to you? Barnes, she was my ex-girlfriend, end quote. Then, in an excerpt from page 1876, Prosecutor Galen Giger makes this comment, quote, I know you were in a relationship with Ms. Summers, end quote. So, was she Barnes' stepdaughter or was she Barnes' ex-girlfriend? Regardless, why was she listed as the victim and the one who was interviewed by police if the home was actually rented by Tabitha Barnes and the property therein owned by Barnes? And if Summers lives there and is Barnes' stepdaughter/ex-girlfriend, where was she just hours earlier when Barnes was with Cooper, parked next to, instead of in front of, their own home at midnight in sub-freezing temperatures? Lastly, if Officer Daniel Holtzclaw had really committed some sort of sexual assault against Tabitha Barnes just hours earlier, an assault that so upset her she warned her children to run if they ever saw him again, yet none of those children remember her telling them that, why would she not have mentioned something to the female officer that told her not to worry about her warrant? Was she really too, quote-unquote, terrified to tell anyone? Regardless, if Holtzclaw had committed a sexual assault, why in the world would he arrive on scene with Barnes and Summers holding down their burglar and then risk pissing both Barnes and Summers off by placing Summers in handcuffs and having her lying on the ground until he sorted it all out. But the craziness and allegations don't end there. Barnes is going to come into contact with Holtzclaw at least 2 more times, and those encounters are eventually going to result in allegations that Holtzclaw broke into Barnes's home, harassed a boyfriend of Barnes, forced her to expose herself again, and then stalked her. But I'm going to save those details for the next episode.
All right. So hopefully that kind of connects some dots for you guys. If you're having trouble following my explanation, my attempts at explaining the situation, Brian Bates, I mean, it's his case for sure as far as investigating, and he definitely has much more information than we do. And he was able to really explain some things that I think was kind of necessary to, trying to make it all make sense. I don't know. So hopefully, with what we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, and then hearing this tonight, it makes a little more. Well, none of it makes sense because it's also crazy, but in your mind's eye, hopefully you can have a better visual, I guess, of what took place from Daniel's point of view, and which is the point of view I choose to believe, just if for no other reason, based on the evidence or lack thereof. Because it was going to be I was going to do both parts tonight, but I didn't, obviously. I'm going to premiere this last episode by Bates on, I'm not really sure when, probably sometime Monday, I think. I haven't quite decided yet. It'll definitely be, though, before next Thursday. Next Thursday, we will finally get into some transcripts. And I think we have the preliminary hearing transcripts that we will be prepared to read. I haven't read them yet, or at least all of it. I mean, I've read sections that have been provided in the past, but I haven't read all of it. But after we do that, we'll get into the trial transcripts that I have read, and that is crazy. That is, you guys are going to be, I'm pretty sure you're going to be, I know this is a really not the best way to describe it, but it's sitting back and listening or reading it from our point of views now. It's entertaining, I guess. And not because of the situation, but because of just how crazy the day gets when Tabitha Barnes is going to testify at trial. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope everybody else is too. Sheree, what do you got?
Well, I was just trying to see if I've got the events that eventually were supposed to be the truth, in air quotes, at trial. Was the February 27th was the car out front, when they were sitting in the car waiting for the snap to drop, allegedly. And then the next one was at March 26th, and that's when she came home and Daniel had been all up in her house, allegedly. Boyfriend sleeping, took her out in the car, and whatever, some kind of assault allegedly happened. And then 3/27 was when she called, or she was cooking supper, and he allegedly stopped in and wanted to go through her house again or whatever and called the mom. So do I have those correct, or what's not correct?
No, that's absolutely correct. But also the burglary that takes place on the night of the 27th.
Do they talk about that in the trial? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I don't remember if they talk about that in the trial. And I kind of think, from memory, from when I did read so long ago, I kind of feel like that was mentioned, but it wasn't really, there were no details really, but I'm not really sure. But
I remember Daniel didn't, Rocky saying Daniel was there, but there were so many officers around that he restrained himself.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Rocky is just, and again, for those of you who haven't read the police report, definitely I suggest you reading the police report or the documents that Brian Bates provides at holtzclawtrial.com. Episode 12, I believe it's going to be in. If you go to the website, go to episode 12, and then click on the homepage. That's going to bring up all of the documents and a bunch of pictures and things like that.
I put the link to it in earlier in the chat to that episode.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, because it really, it's a long read. It's a long police report, but really only because Rocky takes so much liberty in writing this report that he's not writing a report. He's writing a narrative. Literally, if you read that police report, it's his narrative with her, bits and pieces of information, that she gives as well. But yeah, and like Brian Bates said, I think he said no less than 15 times in this police report, Rocky Gregory writes, says that Tabitha advised that Spike, or Tabitha said Spike, or, what. And like Brian Bates said, never at any time that we've heard in a recorded, report, does she ever say that they called him Spike. The only thing, and I don't know if anybody on the panel can think of a different thing, but the only thing that I can think of that in that recorded interview, that Tabitha, when Rocky is asking her near the end of the interview, I think, to describe the officer, she gives a description. And then she says, she's talking about his hair, and then she said, and it was kind of spiked up in the front a little, or something to that effect. Other than that, I never heard Tabitha or the kid refer to the officer as Spike. So when my point is when you read through that police report that Rocky Gregory wrote, you can see that he's trying to just tell a story, and he's trying to make it as salacious and dirty as possible by, the words that he uses. And like Brian Bates, so also in the police report, when he does use the word Spike, claiming that Tabitha said that, he puts it in quotes. And then he, like Brian Bates said, he's got all these exclamation points behind different comments or whatever that Tabitha says. And it's so frustrating, because that, to me, that's not the way a police report should be written. I've read everybody on this panel, we've all read countless police reports from different states and different courts and, different cases. And I've never seen police reports written the way that Rocky Gregory writes police reports. Tabitha's just happens to be the most, colorful or flamboyant or whatever. It's kind of sick the way he writes this report. So if you haven't, again, follow that link that Cherie posted in the chat earlier and read that police report from Brian Bates, because he kind of breaks down, and, you know, he's got all kinds of colors and highlights and so much work into that police report that he's dug, you know, and I don't know, how do you want to say it, dissected or deconstructed that report, and brings back around the absurdity of it, of the story, and of the way the police report is written. It's definitely worth the time to go through it and read it, I think.
And points out how things change at trial and stuff. And
right.
He didn't even go to the depositions because I guess they hadn't happened yet. I don't know, or maybe he just didn't have access. I don't
know. Rocky?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm talking about Bates.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't know about that. About him, yeah.
What's the question?
If Brian Bates went to the preliminary hearings.
What I was saying was, like, I maybe I misunderstood what Rhonda was saying, but what I was saying, I thought she said that he, you know, how he dissects what Rocky wrote and points out the absurdity. And then I said, well, and then I like how he points out how the stories change by the time you get to trial. And then I said, and they change again by the time they get to deposition. But he probably, maybe he didn't have access then. I don't know.
Yeah, he was after the trial. That was the end of, as far as the involvement in the case of Scott Adams, Robert Gray, and Brian Bates, although Bates obviously did continue to and does continue to advocate for Daniel. Speaking of Bates, I just saw that he's getting ready to finish another year of law school. It looks like he's cramming for tests this week and a half. So looking
when
forward.
did he? Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
When did he start getting back into the case, like, and doing the podcast? How long after? Do you know?
Well, so I think right after the trial, he was diagnosed with cancer. So he had that long battle. And then, because I think he had planned to do the podcast on the heels of the trial, and it was a couple years, I know, maybe even more. I'll have to look at the date of when that first podcast was published, but before he actually started putting out episodes. And then, as many of you who have listened to the entire podcast that's available thus far, he was putting episodes out on a weekly basis, and then the civil trial was going on. The civil action was going on just at the, it fired up immediately after the trial. And at some point, I know that the accusers' attorneys were listening to the podcast, trying to learn about the case, I guess. And they started covering him up with subpoenas to produce all the supporting evidence that he was talking about in the podcast. So he really just got so sick and tired of doing their work for him that he paused the podcast. And then he got into law school. So now, obviously his time is eaten up by law school. So is that 2 or 3 years?
It's 3 in New York.
Okay. It must be 3 here too. He's not talking about the light at the end of the tunnel yet. So I guess he has 1 more year. What else I was going to say is, when Rhonda was saying check out the police reports, You know, Rocky's so dumb that he's so dumb that when he tries to put some narrative out there, like, oh, let's say that Tabitha had a nickname for Daniel, that's Spike. Okay, well, maybe Rocky, people might believe you more if A, like Rhonda said, she actually mentioned it in a audio recording, or B, you didn't write the word Spike in your police report, 13 times or some stupid crap like that.
Right.
When you read his reports, you can always tell what he's lying about. And you know that because he focuses on it. He mentions it over and over and over. But when you're looking at those police reports, it's also interesting to where there are recordings. If it says see record, usually at the bottom of the report, if there is a recording, it references that there is a recording. Those recordings never match the written report.
No.
It's so interesting how, and what's sad about that is the written reports are basically what are used to show the prosecutor to bring charges or not bring charges.
And then at the, when he goes to appeal and stuff, unless they get an evidentiary hearing, then you might get some of that stuff. And
right. Well, like Shardarion Hill case is a great example of that, because they didn't realize at the end of her interview that she said, oh, is this good evidence? Because, like, even if he didn't rape nobody or nothing, he's still getting in contact with women that he pulled over, or something to that effect. It was Bates who happened to listen to that recording and bring that up. And, Shardarion Hill was a slam dunk for them, because the things that Daniel did, they were incriminating, because he friended her after spending hours on end guarding her in a hospital room, listening to her tell him that, she's been in trouble in the past and she's trying to get her life together. And, she's a schoolgirl now and she just messed up this one time. Just seeing that he friended her on Facebook is incriminating. When I heard that and heard there were Facebook messages, I just thought, what the hell? But then when you see the messages, you see that, they're not inflammatory. They are actually in support of someone who is encouraging someone to stay on the straight and narrow and do better. I mean, for God's sakes, he saved her life.
Yeah. Literally.
But he shouldn't have done that. And he shouldn't have. I mean, it's really cocky and arrogant to, well, maybe those aren't the right words. I think he's used those words before, but to think that it would be okay for him to drive by her house and talk to her. It's not okay. That's not okay. But those things also aren't criminal, and they're not a reason for someone to be in prison for 263 years. And he was exonerated on all counts with her because she showed herself to be a liar. So I don't know. Anyway, my whole point was just compare the police reports to the video, or the audio. It's really interesting to me. It shows you how dumb Rocky is.
Right. I also want to say, I think there's only one thing that I disagree with Brian Bates about, and that is when he talked in this particular episode about Rocky Gregory showing his confirmation bias. I don't feel like that. I feel like I feel like saying that somebody's, has confirmation bias. That's kind of technically a what is the emotional or mental thing that we're unaware of that we're doing. At least initially, if we do have confirmation bias on any topic, initially I don't think we recognize it. Even if somebody tells us that we're being, biased out in that way, I think, sometimes we're not, no, nope, I'm right. I know it, just like with Kim Davis and her. Now that was true confirmation bias. Kim Davis's reaction during her interview or after her interview with Jamie Liggins, that would be, in my opinion, confirmation bias, because she didn't know anything about who this officer is at all. And she's already decided that this quote unquote victim, was assaulted before she's even done any investigation. At that point, all she's done is an interview and believes that this person was sexually assaulted. And that, to me, yes, is confirmation bias. But when you give somebody, when you assign that label, I guess, confirmation bias to somebody, it's kind of in my mind, it's like you're offering just a little bit of grace, you almost couldn't help but have confirmation bias, because it's not a conscious thing that we do. So when Brian Bates said, that Rocky Gregory's confirmation bias was showing, or however he worded it, that I just disagree with that, because there was no bias, no confirmation bias, in my opinion, going on at all with any of these accusers, that Rocky or Kim Davis, for that matter. It was not confirmation bias. It was like this drive, like this race, like this maniacal thing that
targeted.
Yeah.
Targeted.
Yeah, targeted. There you go. Perfect word. They definitely, after Jamie Liggins, everything was targeted. It wasn't, in my opinion, confirmation bias.
Well, I don't know if it was actual, but one thing, I just put the definition that I found in the chat, but of confirmation bias. But like when Rocky says that the reason why Daniel didn't do any assaulting at all anytime, but he did it. Rocky said the reason why he didn't during the robbery or the burglary, was because other officers were around. So he interpreted, him not doing anything just because other officers were around. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad example, but
no, it's a perfect example. How can you say that? You cannot predict, or you can't. I just feel like it's almost nearly impossible to, with a hard fact, say that what somebody's intention was or wasn't. And for Rocky Gregory to say that was a perfect example, Cherie, that the only reason that Officer Holtzclaw didn't do anything to her that night, the night of the burglary, was because you can't. How can they say that? And why is that in a police report?
That's right. He shouldn't be putting his opinions in a police report. He should just put in the facts.
Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. So, yeah,
I think the other thing that comes up a lot is this whole notion of, oh, they didn't show everyone a photo lineup, or all they had to do was show a picture of Daniel. Come on, man. Daniel had contact with all these women. He's gonna look familiar to him. What purpose will that serve? To show photos and say, is this the person that assaulted you?
Right.
I agree.
I feel like that's the one thing that such a big deal is made about. And you know, it makes you wonder why would Kim Davis, you know, say we're not doing photo lineups anymore? Well, we know why she said that, but it's not, like Kay said, it's not a bad thing, because potentially every one of those women would have identified Daniel because they had, you know, police contact with him. Can you imagine how much of a horrible fight this would be, or how much worse this could be than it is if they had done those photo lineups? So I'm with Kay. I think it was, you know, not a bad thing that photo lineups weren't shown.
I think it's not a bad thing, but that they weren't necessarily, but it does kind of look fishy why they didn't. And I believe it was because they were afraid they wouldn't pick him, you know, and they needed them.
Yeah. Yeah. The lack of photo lineups has always been fishy to me. Always.
Yeah. Susan?
Yeah. Oh, I talked over Jack there. I'm sorry. I said Daniel's not a short black man.
not at all.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
well,
I mean,
he has 62 years to think about why she would think he was.
No doubt.
I think it took her a long time, I think, to realize that she got played by the Oklahoma City Police Department, because she's one of the people that I wondered if her allegations were true. But she was so easily led to the date that Daniel pulled her over and to the location that it makes you wonder what might have been going through her brain. So if she truly had been raped by a short black person, a short black man, she didn't say it was an officer even. Did she?
Well, I know it's funny that when she saying it on the phone in the phone interview, she says it was a black man.
What did Kim ask her though?
Well, Kim asked, I think Kim mentioned the police officer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the sit down interview for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So regardless of that, what could have been going through her mind? I'm sorry. I keep going off on different accusers, and we're talking about Tabitha Barnes, but
that's my fault. Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I brought up Shardarian Hill already. So, but like, what would she be thinking? Hey, I'm going to help him get this other rapist? Or
Kim said, I know who did this to you.
Right. And so she trusted that she did. But then when she finds out later that who she's accusing is not a short black man, but she's already committed to the root.
Yeah.
She wasn't stopped by a short black man at that location on that day. She was stopped by Daniel at that location on that day. There's no confusing that he's a short black man. Kim doesn't tell her, oh, hey, I think you got your description wrong or whatever, but I know who did this to you. No, she just tells her, yeah, Sherry, I know who did this to you. Sherry would be thinking, oh, okay, so she knows the guy that matches this description. Oh, good. But then it's just so curious how they got to the location. I think she shows her AVL maps, or I'm sorry, she can't come up with that location for that crime after saying that it was a short black man. It just doesn't make any sense. And
I would
she's
think
cute.
that if she were shown these maps, she didn't have any idea who Kim, about Holtzclaw, who Kim was saying had done this. Like, Kim didn't show her a picture of Holtzclaw and say, here's the guy,
No.
or ask her to do, pick him out. So she just said, well, I know it was, it happened on this day at this location. I mean, she may not have been sure. I don't know.
Well, I didn't see that she was stopped by another officer in the time period that they were looking at. And you usually remember when you get stopped. You remember the location. You remember the details.
Remember the date, and I mean, did she mention those specifics before?
No.
She did not know the date.
Not on a recording.
Yeah.
Or did she? Well, she didn't. Maybe she is the one that drew a map, but
she drew a map.
There has to be more communication between the phone call and the interview.
Well, I think we learned in trial, if I'm not mistaken, that there were other. There's so many. It's hard to keep the story. It's hard to keep the storyline straight. But I know that there's been, that we've read in transcripts from in some of the accusers that there had been conversations, between the accuser and the prosecutor and the detectives all together and things like that, because we've read it in trial transcripts. I'll have to go back and listen to Sherry Ellis and see if hers was one of those, but because I always think, well, wait a minute, what do you mean other meetings? We don't have any proof of those. We don't have any recordings or any reports of those other meetings that took place, that the accusers testified to. So,
well, Sherry ends up dropping out of the civil suit after her deposition. And what happens in her deposition? She's shown a picture of Daniel, and she tells him the first time that I saw who they accused of doing this was at trial. So she realizes that she helped. I mean, what would it feel like to know that you're responsible for someone being in prison for 62 years? And you're a part of the...
Right.
I seriously, I wish she would come forward and talk about how she got duped by the detectives, but
yeah,
she's the only person that I feel like actually might have a conscience about it.
Right, I agree.
But she's probably also afraid of what will happen if she turns on the police too. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about all that, and she just doesn't give a shit, and she thinks it's all great.
I don't, when we watch that video from the the one that goes from the phone call to the in-person interview to the deposition, I believe she is legitimately tore up at the end of her deposition, clip that we have. She looks legitimately like devastated at what she's sitting there saying in those moments. Like you said, all of a sudden, I feel like I'm like UK. I think in those moments, she's like, oh my God, I am a part of sending an innocent man, or at least in my situation, to prison for 62 years. And it's not that this picture they're showing me is not the man who assaulted me.
Well, she did not identify him at trial, right? In the courthouse.
No, she couldn't.
Well, what I learned about that is during I don't think they asked her during the trial. I don't think they asked her to identify him during trial. They asked her during preliminary and told her to stand up. And during preliminary, she could not identify him at all in the preliminary hearing. And so I'll have to go back and read, but I feel like they didn't ask her, or if they did, if Scott Adams did, it wasn't, not enough attention was paid to it. But I know during preliminary, she could not identify Daniel in the courtroom.
And she had actually been stopped by Daniel, right? So
yeah, she was walking and he stopped her and questioned her on Highland between 17th and 18th.
Yeah, between 17th and 18th.
So she had interacted with Daniel, and he was sitting right there. And even though she had interacted with him, she still didn't pick him out. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I get it.
It wasn't Daniel. If she did, in fact, get sexually assaulted by a police officer. Yeah.
And we don't know if anybody else had, we don't have any way of knowing if there was another, Terry stop on her before or after that May 7th, because we don't get reports of anybody else that they may or may not have been investigating. All we have is, evidence. It's not even evidence. Let's get real. All we have is what they've given to us, or what they provided, I guess, that they can twist and use to go against Daniel. That's all we have. We don't have anything for Officer, Alexander or Edwards, or what's his name, Sellers. We don't have any of those reports.
Yeah, and those could be very telling, actually.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Which is what is so frustrating. And the only reason I think that we have what little bit we do have from Officer Venegas at Tabitha Barnes in her case is because there was interaction between Tabitha Barnes and Angela Cooper and Daniel Holtzclaw and Officer Venegas and the kids. So, they kind of didn't have a choice but to give us Officer Venegas's AVL information. They kind of had to. But who knows what other information they may have actually gotten that would have been exculpatory for Daniel that we will never probably ever see. We won't ever see that. So it's frustrating. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. What I do want to say before I forget.
Gross, Rhonda.
I know, I'm sorry. It is, it's nasty. I didn't mean it, just anyway.
Sorry.
Hey,
I was on
I'm gonna fall over out of my chair apologizing for that.
All right, I'll put myself in the corner.
Anyway, I have to say before I forget, and then we can continue talking or whatever, but I have to say something. I have to complete full transparency. I have to walk back some like hardcore statements that I've made that I have said I've known to be true about the Barnes, one of the Barnes incidences. And that is the third incident. Based on, in her police report, based on the AVL information that is provided in her police report, that big colorful one that I've shown you before, where I say this is on the 27th of, or the 26th of March, the third incident, where he allegedly stops and goes up and knocks on her door and tries to get in and then talks to her mom on the phone and all that stuff. I've always said, literally based on the ABL, because I don't have a police report that says anything. I've always told you guys that I could prove it for 100% fact that he did not stop at her house that day. I recently just learned that he did, in fact, make a 2 or 3 minute stop. It was less than 5 minutes stop at her house that day. And you're going to hear this in the next episode that I'm going to play, that we're going to premiere next week. He did, in fact, go ahead.
What was the time? Was it like she was saying, oh, it was right after the shift or something?
No, she says she knows that he had just come on shift, which his shift starts at 4 o'clock. And she knew he had just come on shift because she could smell his cologne and she could see that his hair was all neat and tidy, which I just think is bizarre, but whatever. But when he was there and there was a zero speed for 3 minutes, maybe 4, maybe 5 minutes, I don't know. But at any rate, it was 7:15 or something in the evening. So it wasn't near the beginning. It wasn't at the beginning of the shift when you just come on. So I wanted to correct that because it's been so long since I'd listened to that episode, episode 13, that I had completely forgotten about that. So I wanted to be honest and transparent with everybody. I made a mistake. I was wrong. But having said all that, it's still, when you hear Brian Bates' explanation of what really happened that day, I was wrong. He did make that contact, but you'll hear. I don't want to give everything away right now. But I just want to be honest and transparent about it. So I apologize for that. All right. Kay is going to leave us now. She's got plans with her hubby, so she's going to take off. But thank you so much, Kay, and thank you for all of your contribution and updates and everything. We appreciate it.
You are welcome. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, Kay. Good night, John Boy.
Anyway, so that's pretty much where I wanted to wrap it up at about that point anyway. But hopefully this episode, it was boring. Like I said, I just didn't have time to, I don't know, maybe the pictures that I add don't really make a difference anyway, but I feel like at least, if we can't see a video, if all we have is audio, at least adding, pictures and visuals. I'm a very visual person, so not having something to look at besides the same screen the whole time is kind of frustrating for me. So I apologize I wasn't able to do that, but for the premiere that I'll show for episode 13, it'll look a lot nicer. So
I think it sparked a good conversation I thought we had. So
yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully it's untwisting things. Well, connecting dots for viewers and untwisting, hopefully, some of the things for viewers. So that's the goal, to get us to where we're at with preliminary transcripts and trial transcripts, because it's going to be wild. So, all right. I'm going to be done. We're under 2 hours. That is super awesome for me. So, but I do want to offer everybody on the panel a chance to make comments or, announcements or anything. And we'll start with Susan.
Yeah, I just find her testimony just not credible at all. Changing stories. I just don't understand how he got convicted. Tabitha.
I agree. Before I forget, too, I did want to really quickly, if we can, sorry to cut Jack and Cherie off, or to cut you off, Susan, but I did want to play, now that we've kind of gone through some of that stuff, and Brian Bates has kind of made some connected the dots for us. I do want to play this video that we have while this episode is fresh in our mind. I want to play this for everybody really quickly. It's only 2 or 3 minutes long, so
play it.
Yep. So we're going to play that really quick, and then I'll get back to Jack and Cherie. Sorry, guys.
How many times did Holtzclaw touch you inappropriately?
He didn't touch me.
He never touched you?
No.
Next to the third to the last line says, Holtzclaw then asked Plaintiff Barnes if there was anything under her breast and fondled Plaintiff Barnes's naked breast. Do you see that?
You just read it. Yes, I see it, sir.
Isn't that different than what you testified today?
What do you mean is that different?
Didn't you say Holtzclaw didn't touch you?
He didn't touch me.
So this is a mistake.
He did not touch me.
Okay, and if you go back to Defendant's Exhibit number 11, which is the information, count 1.
Go ahead.
5 lines from the bottom of count 1, directing TB to expose her breast and then touching her bare breast with his hand without her consent. That's also a mistake.
He didn't touch me.
Okay. And you understand that Mr. Holtzclaw was convicted of sexual battery on that count as a result of your testimony?
Yes.
So that would have been a lie?
What would have been a lie?
The fact that he was charged with touching you.
I don't know what he was charged with. I know he was charged with 3 counts of me exposing myself.
Okay.
Just one further question, Ms. Barnes. You would agree, would you not, that you have to be 100% truthful about what you've told us today for you to prevail in your lawsuit?
Yes.
Okay, and you've been 100% truthful with us today about everything that you claimed?
Yeah,
you haven't lied to us, right?
No. Everything that I remember is what I remember. That's what I'm telling you.
Wow.
Makes me want to scream.
Jesus Christ.
And doesn't it, with all of what Brian Bates just broke down for us, doesn't it make you even more furious to see that? It just infuriates me so bad.
And you can tell, to me anyway, by the look on her face that she's not lying, or she's not lying in that moment. She does not remember saying all that stuff before, is what it looks like to me.
That's what it looked like to me too. Yep.
Yeah, so
she was high.
Yeah.
She was wasted.
Well, yeah, well, in the initial interviews, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just, I mean, she might be high there too, I don't know, but if she is, it's on, like crack or meth or something, and not a...
Yeah, she didn't seem to be in the deposition.
Yeah. Nope, she doesn't to me either.
You want to look at what, who is it? Kayla.
Oh,
Lyles.
Kayla Lyles. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
we get to talk about
Jamie Wiggins. She looked higher than a kite too, or something.
Unfortunately, we can't share any of their things yet, their depositions yet. And I know it's kind of a tease when we say things about the depositions that we can't show you, but
you were allowed to show a little bit at one point, weren't you?
I'm still waiting for permission.
Oh, I thought you did show a little bit.
I haven't got permission yet. I'm waiting for somebody to give the permission, but I haven't asked lately just because there's a lot going on. So that's like the least of the things. But when we get around to where we can show you clips of different things, I'm saying this to the viewers, it's going to be really eye-opening, I guess. Hopefully we're doing that, with transcripts that we're getting to read to you. But when we get to the point where we can show you different clips of their depositions, it has to make the naysayers anyway, the guilters, so to speak, it has to at least give them pause if they truly have or are interested in truth and justice. There's things that, even with the trial transcripts, I'm telling you, when you hear what went on in court during the trial with Tabitha Barnes, it's going to piss you all off. As comical and entertaining, like I had mentioned, as it might seem, and funny at times, just because of the way she talks and things like that, it should piss you off at what happens during the trial during her case, because it's despicable what is allowed to take place. So anyway, I always like to show that video whenever we're talking about Tabitha Barnes, and I don't think we've seen it. I don't think we saw it last time, so I wanted to, especially after Brian Bates's episode 12 review, I especially wanted to play that for you guys tonight. So thank you for your patience, and now I will come back to Cherie. I'm sorry I cut you off a minute ago.
Well, I said already what my thoughts were. I thought that it was kind of refreshed on my memory, and I thought we had a good discussion afterwards. So good show, or a good presentation. I don't like to call it a show.
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, thank you. And, it's a team effort. So, definitely appreciate it. Also, thinking about team effort, probably a couple of years ago now, if you go back to my channel a couple of years ago when I was first starting out and I didn't have very much information and I was getting little bits and pieces and I had no idea how to do videos and I was just being all sorts of crazy with different emojis and different kinds of things. But go back, especially with Tabitha Barnes, go back and watch. I think there were 3 parts that we did for Tabitha Barnes a couple of years ago. And they're really, and Kay mentioned it earlier before we went live, they're really not that bad. They're pretty good as far as, the way that, we all collaborated together and put together some pretty decent slides, if I think. And so, because I know none of you have anything else to do in your lives, if you get a chance, just go back, and even if you just kind of, go through some of those first 3 videos with Tabitha Barnes' story way back in the beginning, I think you'll find those interesting as well. So thank you, Cherie. And Jack, you've been so quiet tonight.
Oh, just taking it all in. It's like Susan and Cherie, and even you have said, this trial testimony. Then we watch this deposition. It's infuriating that he got convicted. It's just infuriating to me, and it's call it whatever you will, but it goes against every principle of our justice system, and it's just wrong. It's just wrong. So it's just infuriating to me. Great podcast. Thanks for presenting it.
Oh, no, thank you for being here and for streaming on Foul Play for us. We always appreciate that, and I think it helps. It's reaching a different audience. It's reaching a different wrongful conviction case audience, and so that's very helpful. to have you doing that for us. So I do want to, I don't like saying these kinds of things because I don't like making it sound like I'm trying to, rub money from people. But, if you are interested in becoming a member, there's the join button down there. And I'm going to say this. I don't know if I've said it before, but I definitely need to say it now because it's always on my mind whenever I talk about the membership. I am a do-it-yourself kind of person. And I know that I asked Jack about when I realized I could, monetize to that degree. I remember talking to Jack about it and I was really uncomfortable. I was like, I want to do that because I want to donate whatever money can be made, to purchasing transcripts of the trial and contribute to, Daniel's defense fund. But I really
remember, guys, for trial transcripts in Oklahoma, it's $1.75 per page.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not cheap.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So we definitely appreciate that help. And I don't like saying it. I don't like sounding like I'm begging, but on behalf of what Daniel really needs from everybody, from us, from everyone who's interested and believes in his innocence, I just encourage you to do that. You don't have to, of course. But I do want to say something because I was so determined to do it by myself, to figure out how to set up the monetization and all that. I just, Jack was trying to give me advice and tell me, just do it. It's okay. It's not. I finally, after probably a month or more, decided to do it. And without really understanding, and I'm really sorry for those of you who have already joined, although it's nothing I can do about it. I did not intend to set that monthly membership at $2.99 to start. That's way too high, and I recognize that. I understand that, and I feel horrible about it. And so when I tried to change that before I went live with the membership, once you set a price, you can't change it. And so I'm really sorry because I realize that it is to I know that.
Can't you have different levels, Rhonda?
You can, but I can't go down. I have to. Now I can only go up. Now I can only increase the price, and I don't.
You have to. Yeah, you have to set that initially when you set up for monetization for the join.
Yeah. So I'm really disappointed in myself for doing that. It would have been better to start out at 99 cents, obviously, and then, give people a place to work up to. But I didn't, and that's a shame on me for not, just settling down and asking for more advice and making sure I was doing things right. So for those of you who have joined and will join in the future, a double thank you, because I know that's a big ask, and I understand that. On the other hand, if you wish to make a contribution, just like a one-time or whatever you want to do contribution to Daniel's legal assistance, Cherie put the link to the I can't remember what it's called, Go Get Funds or something. And you can donate there, whatever amount you would like to, if you choose to help that way too. So big apology. I wish I hadn't said it or misunderstood how it worked with the pricing on the membership. But if you can join, even for a month, and then break and then come back later, whatever, that's great. And if you can't, that's okay too. Being here, listening to what we're trying to present, talking about it with others, hopefully sharing the content that we're presenting, that's a big help too. Asking questions and making your comments, that is also very helpful because it gives us new places to go and new things to think about that, think about talking about that we might not have already. So
and remember, Rhonda, that's how you found out from me about Daniel's case, because we were just talking on Discord. I'm like, you never heard of Daniel's case? No.
Yeah.
Well, go watch Daniel and Den. Here's this link. Check this out. Boom. Yeah. You were in.
I was like, oh hell no! I need to know more about this.
Right.
Yeah.
That was just word of mouth. So.
Yeah, exactly. It was just word of mouth, and that. What was that? Well, God, we're probably going on 4 years ago by now, Jack.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was 2020. I think it was.
Yeah, it was 4 years, or it was 2020 when I got involved in learning about it.
When you got pulled in too.
She got sucked in. Yeah,
exactly.
And I didn't even know. I mean, I knew of Cherie. I don't recall, for those of you in chat who may not, know the different physical names, but I knew of Cherie, but I didn't know her. We'd been in different chats together on other live streams that we had been involved in, and chatted very kindly and politely. But when she joined this little team that we, finally assembled, I didn't really know her that way. And Cherie has been a huge help. And everybody here on the panel has been a huge help in whatever ways they are able to contribute. And Cherie has been an amazing help, helping me with slides, put together slide presentations. And she really, really tried for about 2 years to create an outline for me for every week. And I just can't do it. I can't go by an outline. And I know it drives her and Kay both crazy because they never really know what's coming. So I'm really sorry, but I can't hold myself to something like that. I'm too much of a free spirit, I guess you could say. So, but, an immense help. And Susan has become much more interested in learning more and more about the case. She's listened to every one of Brian Bates' podcasts, I know for a fact, at least once. And it's, she's had a lot of questions twice. Yeah. So, it's Susan doing that, and then, having the same kind of urge that we all did, or Cherie and Kay and I, to learn more, to understand more, that has been great. And all of the contribution, all of the reading, that Susan does, when we're reading transcripts and all of that, an incredible help. So thank you to Susan. And then, of course, Jack, Jack is like he's just my
smart ass older brother.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't know what to do. Go ask Jack.
Literally, yeah. Jack helps me with computer questions and anything technical, and even if he doesn't know the answer, he goes and looks for an answer for me. And that's just, incredibly helpful, because I'm so, I'm just not techno at all.
Okay. I was going to say, okay, Kim. No. I think another really good thing is what Kay said at the beginning. She's talking about Outcry. And for those of you all that haven't seen Outcry, damn. It's a 5-part docuseries. But anyway, I think her suggestion is a good one.
Yes.
To get these documentarians maybe interested in doing a series on Daniel. Can you imagine?
Needs exposure.
It needs exposure. Yes. That's what it really needs at this point. I'm telling you, it would blow up.
I think
There's
so.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know who these documentarians are, so if Kay knows, she needs to share that email or whatever, and so we can send our thoughts to them. Maybe they'll get interested.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if we can all start just writing a letter, like once a month or something, or
absolutely,
everybody write, eventually. I mean, and that's what happened with Stephen Avery, with Kathleen Zellner. I mean, how long did Sandy
Greenman?
Yeah, how many times did she write to Kathleen Zellner?
Several.
And, many times, yeah. So, it's not going to happen the first time, and we know that, we understand that, but needs to start somewhere, and it needs to be a more of a consistent kind of a thing, I feel like.
Yeah.
Appeal
To their, better part of being human and saying, look, this guy's really getting screwed here. It needs exposure to the world to get something moving in the case.
Yep, exactly. Speaking of, my mind is just racing right now. Cherie put links in the chat or where you can find the series Outcry. Super, super good. I agree with everybody. Watch Outcry.
Pretty sure it's also on Prime.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Paramount.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's where I streamed it from. I think it is.
Okay. All right. Well, there's I mean, you can go to IMDb, and you can find, all the places too. Probably, we'll see if we can, I don't know, find a link or something and put it.
I'm looking right now on Prime. I'm pretty sure that's where it's at.
Cherie says Paramount Plus. Yeah, yeah. I think that's what I saw.
Well, that's how I get.
Which is included with Prime on our subscription. Yeah.
Is it really?
It was on mine.
Wow.
Through Verizon.
Oh, through Verizon. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had to pay. I pay extra for Paramount Plus, but I get it through Prime. But maybe some people have different subscriptions or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good. It's actually a great series, and like Kay and Jack and Susan and Cherie, I also recommend it. Heartbreaking, but triumphant at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, yes, that's great advice. And the letter writing and the reaching out is.
It's on Amazon, but now you have to pay for it. It's not free anymore.
Oh.
It's $1.99 per episode.
Yeah. A bunch of BS. Oh, is it on Hulu as well? Okay. Yeah, you can find it. And if you do, you might have to pay for something there, but it's telling you if you're going to spend money, if you do have to spend money on a documentary about a wrongful conviction, that's the one you want to spend your money on. It's that good. So,
it really is good. It's well made.
Yeah. Yep. There was something else I wanted to say, but obviously I can't I can't remember the other things there. Oh, I know what I wanted to say, and Cherie usually is the one who will jump ahead of me and say this first. And in the event that she's forgotten this time, which is fine. But when we listen to that video, that last one that we just played, that little clip, at the very end, when the female attorney is asking those last questions about being honest, that is, if you think you're recognizing that voice, it is Kathleen Zellner. Kathleen Zellner participated in the civil suit, in the depositions for the civil suit. There's more from her in other depositions, but again, with time, things like that will be allowed to be shown. So I think I can't think of anything else. I will be back on Thursday next week, 5 p.m. Central. I had a family thing that I needed to be present for this week, and so I needed to move it to Friday or just postpone it altogether, and I didn't want to do that. And so we'll be back on Thursday, 5 p.m. Central next week, and there will be a premiere. Just kind of have to watch your notifications, but there will be a premiere, I think probably sometime on Monday, that we'll have that ready, that I'll get that video ready for you. And it'll be more entertaining with more visuals, so better preparation. I can't think of anything else that I needed to say. Jack, I know I haven't really given you your last comments, so what do you have to share with us tonight?
Well, just this weekend reading with the crew is going to be different. We're going to read the state's reply that we haven't read so far. It's this is from the 15th of April in the Avery case, and I'm sure it's going to be it's going to be the same kind of stuff we've kind of read before, but we're going to read it out loud to talk about it. It's not going to be about Frack's book.
Prepare to get angry, as we always do, just because.
Yeah, because it's Lisa Comfer and Josh Call, right? And then Sunday we'll be diving back into the queso dispatch calls.
No. Whoa.
What?
I'm out.
What?
Are we going to finish Couché's deposition?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I didn't want to go. I
Yeah.
didn't want to go a week. That's right.
I
Duh.
voted for that too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, we got about halfway through Couché's deposition. Brain dead. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, we'll finish that up. I'm gonna guess that maybe it won't take us too terribly long. You guys did really well in getting that read. So yeah, we'll finish that and probably end it right there. Because that's probably going to take us an hour and a half, 2 hours. So, yep, that's right. You are correct.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. Thank you. I would have remembered later. I would have been like, damn, that's not what we were going to do. Thank you. Yeah, we'll finish that up. And the depositions at that point will be done in the books.
Yay.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't know about anybody else here, but I love watching depositions. First, if I can watch a deposition, I love watch. I don't know why. I feel like I learn a lot from them.
You do,
but I also I love
the mannerisms,
well.
the face, what people do with their face and their hands, their body. It's better than reading because we can't imitate that at all just by So there's that aspect that's missing, and I would much rather watch one than read one.
We wouldn't be able to, can't see when we're reading when, what's his name there?
Couché?
No, the DA.
Mark Rohr?
Yeah, when he gets collar gets tight as soon as
Looked like he was about to die.
Trying not to choke.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I remember the Amber Heard depositions. What I did see, I think I watched about 4 hours of that, maybe in sections. But
I watched a bunch of those.
Very interesting deposition, Amber Heard. And I just like I said, I love watching depositions. I don't care whose it is. I don't care if it's a wrongful conviction. I don't care if it's if the person really did the crime. I don't care what the situation is. I just love watching
Who was that guy? I mean, I know there was that umbrella guy, but there was another guy that had been after. He'd been following this case for forever. What's his name?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. But
he went back years. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't either.
Because he had all this stuff from
Umbrella guy.
Well, that's one of them, but he came on really kind of when things kind of blew up.
From Popcorn Planet, or
no, not Agnes Ignore.
Okay, so the other guy that did cartoons for his, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name.
Well, that umbrella guy does the cartoons too.
No, I know, but the guy that I'm thinking of is his little presentations in the very beginning, before everything blew up. He did like a series of
graphics,
and they were all these little cartoons of himself, and anyway. I think I know who you're talking about. He was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this guy had stuff from the UK stuff. He had a ton of stuff that he had posted, and he kept following and just kept after it. It was that guy really fed a lot of people information that none of us would have otherwise had. And part of those were some depositions from back then. It's crazy, man. That guy was really good.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, so I managed to take us over the 2-hour mark. I tried. I say I like to keep it under 2 hours, but then, I'm always the first one to take it over the line. So, but if you don't want to listen to this whole presentation tonight, just listen to the presentation from Brian Bates and the video that we showed at the end. That's the most important part of this. And you know, if you want to listen to us chatting about all of it too, that's, you know, you should do that too. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all those things, because my algorithm, you guys, I hate saying it because it used to really annoy me when content creators would say, do this for the, you know, we got an algorithm. I used to not buy into it. I was like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Just do the video. And well, I know now that the algorithm is what's going to push the content about Daniel's case out to more people. And I also now know that algorithm being pushed is going to be by likes and comments, mostly, honestly. Sharing, yeah, that's great, but comments and likes are what really help to push that algorithm to make these videos go to more searchable and just kind of start showing up in people's feeds. And that's what we want. We want all of it, but we definitely want that. And that has really, really gone up lately. And so, you know, I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody who's, you know, taking part in that. And not this past week, but 2 weeks ago, we did, I think the very beginning of Tabitha Barnes had over 900 views, which is huge, huge for my channel, huge for my channel. And there's like 22 comments in the comment section, which again is huge for my channel. I know it's a pittance for other people, other YouTubers. I don't care about other YouTubers. For me, it was huge, and I would like to see that continue to grow. You know, even if you just go in and say, hey, in the comment section, it's a comment and it helps. So help me, help us get this information out there into people's YouTube feeds, and so that we can start making a bigger difference towards the push for truth and justice for Daniel's case. And with all that said, thank you guys for being here. We'll be back next Thursday at 5 p.m. Central. And until then, peace out.
Yeah.